واللي بيقتل المدنيين مجرم.
Good afternoon on this Monday, February 24th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Armed forces captured 2 of 3 inmates who escaped from Lebanon's main jail in Rumye this morning. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri says Hezbollah's pullout from Syria could possibly stop the suicide bomb attacks targeting areas where the group enjoys wide support. And Egyptian Prime Minister Hazem al-Biblawi says his government is to resign, a possible catalyst for Sisi to declare his candidacy for president. Armed forces have captured 2 of 3 inmates who escaped from Lebanon's main jail in Rumye. They escaped at 4 o'clock this morning from the block of prisoners using sheets knotted together to climb down the building. One of the captured inmates is a Lebanese national named Mohammed al-Jouni, who was found in the woods surrounding the prison. He was jailed for killing an army captain from al-Judi family back in 2012 during a robbery of Blum Bank. Reports say that he was part of a terrorist cell plotting the assassination of several officials and judges, including Speaker Nabih Berri. The other inmate is also a Lebanese national named Saeed Sabra, and the third prisoner has yet to be found. Rumye is the oldest and largest of Lebanon's overcrowded prisons and has witnessed sporadic prison breaks and escalating riots in recent years as inmates living in poor conditions demand better treatment. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri says Hezbollah's pullout from Syria could possibly end the suicide bomb attacks that have struck Lebanese areas where the group enjoys wide support. In a wide-ranging interview with the Egyptian TV channel CBC in a Cairo broadcast, he pledged to prevent a presidential vacuum, saying he would return to Lebanon to participate in the election of a new president. The head of the Future movement said Lebanon began facing security problems after Hezbollah decided to intervene militarily in Syria last year to support President Bashar al-Assad's forces. Asked if he feared that the cycle of deadly car bombings and suicide attacks that has targeted areas in Beirut's suburbs would continue, he said, quote, "This matter will not stop. Our problem in Lebanon is that we do not know how to stop it because Hezbollah's military involvement in Syria has put us in the position of receiving these kinds of attacks." Prime Minister Tamam Salam is optimistic that consensus on his government's policy statement would improve the conditions of the Lebanese and that successful presidential elections would consolidate the country's democracy. In remarks to a Safir newspaper, Salam said the formation of the cabinet turned the situation from very bad to a little bit better. He said the success of the presidential elections would pave way for bigger opportunities for the country to consolidate its democratic system and constitutional practices. He also added that holding the polls on time would reflect positively on the parliamentary elections. President Michel Sleiman's 6-year term ends this May, and the parliament should start holding sessions on March 25th to elect a new head of state, but Salam's cabinet has not yet finalized its policy statement to prepare for the polls. The committee tasked with drafting it will hold one final meeting today to agree on the blueprint. Cardinal Bashar al-Ra'i salutes Lebanon's army from Rome, saying the military is the only authority that can protect Lebanon. He says that each time an army martyr falls, the military and its leadership become stronger, before offering his condolences over the death of 2 army soldiers killed over the weekend by a suicide bombing that struck a checkpoint outside the northeastern town of Hermel. Army Commander General Jean Ahwaji, who was welcomed in Rome during a ceremony, says that the military is determined to prevent the ongoing war in neighboring Syria from spilling over. Ahwaji also said he was upbeat about the future, adding that his visit to the Italian capital is intended to boost bilateral ties between the armies of the 2 countries ahead of a conference set to be held in Italy to support the capabilities of the Lebanese armed forces. The Lebanese army is vowing to fight on against terrorism as early investigations into the latest suicide bombing that targeted the military near Hermel indicated that the explosives laden car had been rigged in Syria. In a statement, the army says that once again they pay the price of combating terrorism and seeking to preserve civil peace. They vow to carry on their fight against terrorism regardless of the sacrifices, urging the public to rally around the military. The suicide car bombing targeted an army post in the northeastern town of Hermel over the weekend, killing 3, including 2 soldiers, and wounding 17 others. The Lebanon branch of the Nusra Front claimed responsibility for the suicide bombing, saying it was part of a series of vengeful attacks. In other local news, UNHCR Special Envoy Angelina Jolie meets with Prime Minister Tamam Salam at the Grand Sarai before meeting with President Michel Sleiman. She is on a 3-day visit to Lebanon to highlight the plight of Syrian children and to thank the Lebanese people for assisting refugees as the conflict enters its 4th year.
I had the pleasure of meeting with His Excellency Prime Minister Salam, and we spoke about Lebanon's generosity. Lebanon, as you know, has the highest concentration of refugees of any country in the world in recent history. That is an extraordinary thing, and we must do all that we can to support them. I spent time in the Bekaa Valley recently with Syrian refugees, and they are very grateful to the people of Lebanon. They are clearly very traumatized from what has happened to them in Syria. I hope that, and I welcome the Security Council resolution, but as one of the refugee men said to me, for now, for us, it is only a piece of paper. And until it is implemented and until we see change, that is all it is. But we are grateful, and we hope that it does make a difference for us. So I am grateful, and I hope that it does make a difference. And I am very grateful to be in Lebanon. Thank you so much.
Another 60 boys and men who were being held by Syria's authorities after their evacuation from Homs have been released, according to Governor Talal Barazi. They are among around 1,400 people evacuated from rebel-held districts in the heart of Syria after a year and a half under a choking army siege. Another 181 are still being held, and the army says their cases will be dealt with this week, adding that among them are those with an irregular status, possibly referring to army defectors. The evacuation beginning February 7 was part of a UN-supervised humanitarian operation that also saw the delivery of food supplies into the neighborhoods where people have been surviving on herbs for months. The aid mission to Homs came to an abrupt end after a week as government airstrikes and fighting resumed. Egyptian Prime Minister Hazem al-Biblawi says his government is to resign, a step likely to pave the way for Army Chief Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to declare his candidacy for president. He gave no clear reason for the decision. However, Biblawi was appointed after the army toppled President Mohamed Morsi last July, following mass protests against his rule. Earlier, Egypt's state-run Al-Ahram said in a report that the government had quit. The newspaper, citing an unnamed source in a report on its website, said the decision was made after a 15-minute cabinet meeting. For Sisi to run for president, he would first need to leave his post of defense minister. He unveiled a political roadmap meant to lead to elections after toppling Morsi. Coming up next, Frozen, the highly acclaimed Disney film, is predicted to win its first ever Oscar. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ukraine's acting government issued a warrant for the arrest of President Viktor Yanukovych, last reportedly seen in the pro-Russian Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea, accusing him of mass crimes against protesters who stood up for months against his rule. Calls are mounting in Ukraine to put Yanukovych on trial after a tumultuous presidency in which he amassed powers, enriched his allies, and cracked down on protesters. The image you are seeing right now of Ukraine are live shots. Anger boiled over last week after snipers attacked protesters in the bloodiest violence in Ukraine's post-Soviet history. The turmoil has turned this strategically located country of 46 million inside out over the past few days, raising fears that it could split apart. The parliament speaker is suddenly nominally in charge of a country whose economy is on the brink of default and whose loyalties are torn between Europe and longtime ruler Russia. Violence in Iraq, including shelling in the city of Ramadi and shootings in the north, has killed at least 17 people. The single deadliest attack was a bomb that exploded on a highway between Baghdad and the northern city of Mosul on Sunday, killing 3 and 4 detainees who have been captured during a raid. 6 shootings in Mosul killed 7 people, including 3 members of the security forces. And in northern Baghdad, a roadside bomb exploded near bicycle shops in the Sadr city area, killing at least 2 and wounding at least 7. while another bombing in the Hurriya area wounded at least 3 more people. A bomb exploded in a house in the Sinaya area north of Baghdad, killing a policeman and wounding 2 others. Somalia's al-Qaeda-linked rebel group Al-Shabaab has vowed to recapture all Somali territory that it lost in the past year during battles with government forces and African Union peacekeepers. Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud last week said the group will be finished by the end of this year. The gate of the presidential palace was hit in an attack on Friday in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. A huge explosion and gunfire were heard in one of the most serious attacks by the al-Qaeda-linked terror group Al-Shabaab in recent years. They last launched a suicide bomb attack near the gate of the Somali Prime Minister's office at the presidential palace in January 2013, killing a soldier and injuring 2 others. For news around the world in brief, the initiative led by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is the only way to achieve peace between Israel and the Palestinians, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He reiterated his condition that the Palestinians recognize Israel as a Jewish state, adding that he could not understand the Palestinians' leadership resistance in doing so. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas over the weekend expressed his disappointment with the deadlock in U.S.-mediated peace negotiations with Israel, saying on Friday evening that American diplomacy has far failed to present a framework agreement that could lead to a deal. The political unrest sweeping Thailand looks set to continue, with Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra leaving Bangkok and the army chief ruling out military intervention to stop the violence. Shinawatra's office said on Monday that the Prime Minister was about 150 kilometers from the capital. She has not been seen in public in Bangkok since last Tuesday. The embattled leader is due to hold a cabinet meeting, which the Foreign Minister Surapong Thongthepchaikhul said was highly likely to take place outside the capital. Yingluck is also expected at a corruption hearing on Thursday. A critical and commercial success, Frozen marks a second renaissance for Walt Disney's legendary film studio and is widely tipped to win its first ever Oscar for Best Animated Feature next weekend. The movie, which has made nearly $1 billion, is the culmination of a revival driven by fierce competition and the studio's purchase of rival Pixar in 2006, bringing boss John Lasseter into the Disney fold. Critics have hailed Frozen as one of the Disney's best ever movies, following the success of The Princess and the Frog, Tangled, and 2012's Wreck-It Ralph. If the movie does win at next Sunday's 86 Academy Awards, it will be Disney's first Best Animated Feature Oscar since the category was created in 2001. It is not Disney's first comeback. The 70s and 80s were tough for the studio until a new generation of animators arrived to create films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and the 1994's majestic success, The Lion King.
The party is over. Close the gates. What? Elsa, no, wait! Give me my glove! Elsa, please, please! I can't live like this anymore! Then leave. Do to you? Enough, Anna. No, why? Why do you shut me out? Why do you shut the world out? What are you so afraid of? I said enough!
Sorcery. I knew there was something dubious going on here.
If you haven't seen this movie, you really need to. And on that note, let's end our bulletin and remind you of our headlines. Armed forces captured 2 of 3 inmates who escaped from Lebanon's main jail in Roumieh. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri says Hezbollah's pullout from Syria could stop suicide bomb attacks targeting areas where the group enjoys wide support. And Egyptian Prime Minister Hazem El-Bablawi says his government is to resign, a possible catalyst for Sisi to declare his candidacy for president. Your Monday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good night.
اللي بيفخر واللي بيقتل المدنيين مجرم.